Royal Wedding was directed by Stanley Donen in 1951. Fred Astaire plays Tom Bowen, Ellen's brother and dance partner. Ellen is played by Jane Powell. They're a brother-sister dance group that travel around the city and states performing their dance and musicals together. And then in the film, they go over to Europe during the royal wedding to perform for them because their show in New York has ended. This is the scene when Ellen and John, played by Peter Lawford, talk for the first time. I chose this still because I was a little surprised how welcoming Ellen was of John after seeing him with the two other women earlier. I like how the camera is showing a panoramic shot of both of them behind their desks together. It just worked well for the scene, and you got to see both of their facial expressions throughout the entire thing. This next scene is a wonderful dance scene where Tom dances with a coat rack because Ellen doesn't show up for practice because she's late because she's with John. It reminds me a lot of the Singing in the Rain when they dance with the chairs and the curtains. It's one of my favorite musicals, so I really did enjoy this dance scene. He also dances with other various workout equipment that they have in the room, but it was just a fun scene. This was the scene when Tom and Ellen say that they can dance even with the bad weather, so the boat's rocking back and forth. This added a lot to the comedic element to the film, and I very much enjoyed it, but they fall into the walls and they fall into one of the people watching them, so it's just a comedic scene. This next still is a main scene when Tom meets Anne, and Anne is played by Sarah Churchill. He first sees her following her on the street, and she tells him to leave him alone. So I really loved the facial expression on Anne here, because this is right before they proceed to dance together for a tryout that Tom is actually choosing the dancers for. So I really liked this scene that they run into each other, and I loved her facial expression. Another fun part is when Tom and Ellen both decide they're going to go to bed. You see them follow one another, you know, through the door, down the elevator, into a carriage. And I like that they just cut this camera angle so you can see both of their faces, and I love how she waves to him, and then he laughs as her carriage pulls away. It's just nice that they noticed each other. The next still is also a big one when we see John and Ellen kiss for the first time. To me, it kind of came out of nowhere because in 1 minute she's talking to Tom, and then the next minute John comes in and whisks her away to a more serious romantic scene, and you forget that Tom is standing right there. So I thought it was kind of like spontaneous, but it's a big scene because it's the first time they kiss. I liked this scene when Tom and Ellen decide to be each other's dates, mainly because of what they say about John, how they both call him a weak man, and I think it really shows the strong bond between Tom and Ellen, because right when Ellen reads the note that John leaves her saying that he won't be able to make it, Tom goes to her, you know, you don't like weak men, and then she just proceeds to say that she doesn't like it, and now she's upset that he can't be there. The next scene was just another comedic dance scene that I liked. The one thing I did notice right away was that Fred Astaire wasn't as good at doing the accent for this scene as Jane was. It was a funny number that I really enjoyed. It was more acting than a dance scene, which is what you usually see them doing. Like earlier, she was singing when they were on the boat. So this had a nice little acting skit to it. This is a big scene when John tells Ellen that they're in love. I thought here that Ellen would be taken aback more, or her character would seem to be taken aback more. But they do the song together, but you see Ellen later freaking out about the conversation they have with Tom. So I was a little, I guess, I'm just not expecting this scene. I didn't expect a song to even come out there. This was just a good scene to me because you got to see the chemistry more between Tom and Anne's dad. His name is James, and he's played by Albert Sharp. You meet James earlier in the film, but the two together without Anne work well, especially because when you first see him, he's doesn't really take a liking to Tom, but here they're kind of friends, and he helps him get ready for later. And then this next one is one of the famous scenes when Tom dances on the walls and the ceiling. This was a wonderful dance scene and number. I like how Tom took the photo off the sign of Anne, which is the one he's holding during this number. But it's a really great scene. I like when he's dancing on the walls more than the ceiling. But it's a fun clip, and it's one of the famous scenes in the movie. I just loved Irving and Edgar, who play brothers. They're both played by Keenan Wynn, but they're both brothers, and one's their agent in the U.S., and then he sends them over to his brother, who is an agent in Europe. Every time they were on the phone with each other, hearing the same voice with all the cultural misunderstandings, they weren't a big part, but I just laughed every time that I saw them come into the screen, so I just had to put them in here. This is a big scene when Tom tells Anne that he found out that Anne's fiance in the U.S. is married. Earlier we found out that Anne has a fiance, but they haven't seen each other for 2 years or even talked in months. Anne doesn't react at all how you might think. She remains calm and says it's a relief because now she and Tom can be together. And I think Sarah Churchill does a wonderful job capturing Anne's calm, relieved attitude in this situation. This is the big scene when Tom and Ellen convince each other that they both shouldn't get married and throw away their great careers that they've built up, and they've been such a big success. It's a wonderful scene because I like how you get to see Tom and Ellen argue. They both decide just to look out for each other, and that Ellen marrying John and Tom marrying Anne just wouldn't work out the best for the both of them in the end. And then this is the Hollywood ending that I love, how it all works out in the end. They tell each other that they love them and they want to get married, and they live happily ever after, and they get married the day on the royal wedding when they're told it's nearly impossible. I do just love that both the couples stop to kiss instead of just having them walk out, which is what it looks like they're going to do. It is a little hard to see in the picture because it's kind of fuzzy, but my favorite part is that they all stop to kiss.